you know, we go so far back. I don't even remember when we first met. Who knows? But for the Black gymnasts in history, I always tell people it's your list of names that really got us going. You
Oh,
know,
thank you. Good.
yes, you sent those
Happy
names,
to
and
hear,
what's that?
happy to hear that.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
I was it made a huge difference. And Dave hadn't been in touch with Sid Oglesby. I guess Sid was from New Jersey. And so Dave knew about him. I guess they trained at the same Y.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
They
so
they when they went to Montclair State College, he competed against my team.
okay.
Way, way back in the
That,
like early '60s, 63, 64,
right.
4.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So, it's very interesting in gymnastics. Do you remember when you saw the first Black gymnast in gymnastics? The first athlete you remember?
Well, yeah. Well, there was a guy in New York named Joe Francois who had polio, and he was very popular around New York City. Joe was like a metropolitan. That's the category that New York City's in, and so now it's called that's in Washington D.C. too. But it's called the Metropolitan Championships, and Joe won like rings some once in a while, and basically won rope climb. He was a national YMCA rope climb champion, and he had two legs that were sort of
Right.
paralyzed. He used to walk with a big waddle. I mean, he was a funny guy. He was a character. He went to Brooklyn Tech High School, which is one of New York's top high schools.
Right.
And anyway, he was on their gym team. He's older than me, and the way I understand it, he had polio, and that's what did him in his legs. But he was a
Wow.
funny guy. He'd be on the rings. He'd do a cross, and he'd go low. And he'd go, "How is this?" And we go, "You're a little low, Joe." He'd pull up. He'd go, "That's a little high, Joe." And then finally he'd hit it. And then he'd jump off the rings and he'd walk around going, "CTI, CTI." What we go, "What does that mean, Joe?" He says, "Close to impossible, close to impossible." That was Joe. I mean, he was a character.
So, what years was this?
Uh, Early 50s. I'm
Wow.
talking 50, 52, or 53, 54. That's when I saw him. I saw him in probably first and 52 or 3.
That's something. Wow. And
And
and then yeah, so that was here in New York, right? And then I
right.
guess during that time, this was getting close to when Sid was competing.
Well, before
Oglesby.
Sid, in the 50s, I saw, like I say, I saw Archie Dorham compete in the National AU Championship. Um, and he won vaulting and he took second on pommel horse in 1952. The meet was at Penn State University, and he was from Pasadena City College, Archie Dorham. And
Wow.
he was the first good black gymnast I ever saw, yeah, that I can remember, you know.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
interesting.
um, and that was about 10 years before. Oh, I saw Oglesby compete in the Eastern, it's called the EIGL, Eastern Intercollegiate Gymnastic League Championship. Now it's called the ECAC, but I saw him win that. And I don't think I went to the NCAA that he competed in, but he definitely, he won that meet. Said, yeah, I saw
Wow.
Sid compete.
That's so interesting. So there was Sid, and then David Green was competing, and then James Canady Allen. You see, you're telling me about him going to World Championships.
Canati,
Yeah.
Canati was on the 19. He was an alternate on 1968. I'm sorry, 1966 World Championship team, but he was actually on the team in 1968 Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was also on the 1970 World Championship team, I think. So yeah, I saw Canati compete in all those meets.
Wow. That is so
Yeah, for
interesting.
some reason, for some reason he never used the name James.
Oh, that's
Not
interesting.
Yeah, only Kanati. That's how we all know him.
That's funny because when I was talking to Dave yesterday, he kept saying Kanati too. So you guys knew him as Kanati Allen.
That's Kanati himself said, "My name is Kanati Allen." He didn't go by James for some reason. So yeah, I
Okay.
met 66. That's when I met Kanati.
That's
Well,
so
I was
interesting.
coaching the team. And he was, he went with us to Germany. The meet was in Dortmund, Germany, and
Wow.
he didn't compete. He didn't compete though because he was an alternate, but he was
Hmm.
in every practice doing his routines, etc.
That's so interesting. And
Yeah,
so, yeah, back then it was very unusual to have a black doing gymnastics, right? It was
yeah.
just
Oh yeah, yeah. It was unusual. Yeah, it was very unusual.
yeah. That's
My
really
friend, I had a friend that was he was brought up in Hell's Kitchen. John Pesci was the same, and he used to say when he watched like the black athletes, they'd be good in basketball, they were good in baseball, they were good in he says they're good in boxing. He says they're good in the bouncy sports, but the smooth sports, it's the white guys. It was funny. He was being funny,
right.
and
Interesting.
in a way, it hit home because so Kanati was unusual to be in gymnastics. That was considered, an elegant, smooth sport in those days.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about David yesterday saying that back in the day, because you could learn gymnastics, let's say at a YMCA or something like that, where that's not really the case now for men's
Oh yeah,
gymnastics, especially.
yeah. I learned gymnastics at the West Side Y in New York City, and it wasn't actually an official high school sport. And a few schools competed unofficially, so, 5, 6 schools, and then it became official around 1960, 61. It became official. Something I don't know the exact year, and then there was a city championship in gymnastics. But guys like Milan Trinka, however you say his name, he was the coach at East Stroudsburg University, and he went to Brooklyn Tech, and I said Joe Francois went to Brooklyn Tech, and they had meets against a couple other schools. Machine and Metal Trades had a team, and I think there was a school in Brooklyn, Midwood was the name
Oh,
of the
right.
school, Midwood,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a team, and so several teams had guys competing, and they asked. I was working out at the Y. The year was 1954, early like January or so, and someone asked me if I'd go judge a meet in Brooklyn at Midwood High School. Well, I never had judge a meet then. I only had been in gymnastics about 3 years. So I said, well, I guess I could go judge the high school meet. I was like coming up then, so I was considered, pretty good. And
Mm-hmm.
so he need another judge. So I said, John, you want to go judge a meet in Brooklyn? He goes, yeah, let's go. So we hopped on the subway, rode over there, and judged the meet. And Bruno Klaus was in the meet.
Bruno
Bruno was
Klaus
in
was
that.
there.
He was in the meet.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
funny.
he won the meet. He won the meet because he was
Wow.
dressed up in a uniform with white pants and shirt. And these other guys had different color shorts on. Some guys had socks. Some guys had different color socks. I mean, it was like real wild. And at the end, one of the teachers said, "Would you say a few words to the boys?" Well, I was only a couple of years older than they were, and I looked at them, and they were all like a lot of wise guys. And I said, "Well, guys, you got to wear." Some guys competed without shirts. I said, "You got to wear a shirt when you compete." And one guy goes, "Why? Why?" And I go, "Well, it's that's what we do in gymnastics. We compete with shirts." I didn't know anything about rules then, so I said, yeah, "We always compete with shirts." So he made a funny face, and that was that. That's all I said. Got to compete with shirts. I didn't know what else to say. Yeah, so it was interesting. So between 1954, judging my first meet, I'm going to be judging meets, a couple of college meets like Springfield and Navy and Army in February, March, and that'll make the 68th year that I've judged.
Wow,
Now,
that's amazing.
that's gotta be a record.
I think
You know,
so. Yes.
yeah.
Wow.
I didn't I didn't judge a lot while I was coaching the big teams, but I judged occasionally. But so people have judged more meets than me, but I judged a long time.
That is a long time. So then
Yeah.
you were a 56 team?
Me, I
Yeah,
competed in 19. I was on the 1955 Pan American team,
right?
and a few Olympians from '52 tried out, but they didn't make the team. So I thought it was at Navy. It was at Nutria High School in Winnetka, Illinois,
Mm-hmm.
and a famous gymnast from the first NCAA championships, Joe G. Lombardo, was the coach at Nutria. By the way, that's where Rock Hudson went to school, and Ann Margaret went to school there.
Wow.
Little trivia. Anyway, so I competed and I made the team, and I was the youngest guy in the team. And we went to Mexico, and then the next year I made the Olympic team. I was on the '56 Olympic team. You want me to name the teams I was on? I could.
Yes, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, yeah. '56, I was on the Olympic team. 1957, they had 1953, they had the Maccabea Games in
Okay.
Israel, and the
Mm-hmm.
guy came up to George Gulak, who was the big chief in gymnastics, and he said, "I have a good international meet. It'd be good for your development. It's in Israel." I said, "Okay, I said, okay. So I went home and I told my father, I go, "Dad, I'm going to be going to Israel to compete in the meet in these Maccabea Games." And my father, the first words out of his mouth were, "You're not getting a penny from me." He doesn't want to pay. He wasn't going to pay for it. So I said, "You have to pay for it." He goes, "How are you going to go?" I go, "They have a committee, I think, that pays for it." He looked at me. I was 19 then. He says, "They're going to send you to Israel to play games," because I said Maccabea Games. And
Mm-hmm.
he thought it was games in the street. My father knew nothing about sports. So I said, no, it's this gymnastics I'm doing. He says, "Yeah, that I got to see." Well, I went to Israel. When I came home, I said, "See, it didn't cost you anything." He said, "I don't know what this world's coming to. They send you halfway across the world, and they to play games, and they pay for it." I mean, he couldn't understand that. So that was that. And then in '58, I made the '57, I made the Maccabea team again. They held every 4 years.
Right.
'53, yeah. And then I
Mm-hmm.
made the '50 World Championship team. That was the first team that the United States ever sent to the World Championship. '58. That was in Moscow. '59, I made the Pan Am team again. In '60, I made the Olympic team. In '61, what was it? '61. So
Is it?
they had the Maccabea Games again. It's a year after the Olympics, but I didn't. We had a tour with the national team to Russia, Czechoslovakia, and Poland. So I said, "I'm going on that." I've competed in the Maccabea Games. So I went on the tour, '61, and then the Soviets also came here in January '61 after the Olympics. We had to meet against the Russians. And then we went to Moscow in June of '61. I had a dual meet against the Russians. And at that meet rather, was the two first astronauts into space. Yuri Gagarin, he's the first guy that went around the world, around Earth.
The Earth, yeah.
A guy named German Titov, I don't know what he went up and down or something. But they brought us over and we shook hands with them. And Yuri Gagarin is like considered like George Washington in this country. I mean, he's like really well known. So we met
Wow.
them.
Mm-hmm.
And in that meet was the Olympic team, except that one or two guys couldn't compete. They were out of the country. We went to Moscow in June of '61. So Leonard Akayev, who was the Olympic coach for years of Soviet Union, men and women,
Mm-hmm. Right.
he was 8. And every time I see him, like at Worlds and stuff, he says, "Abie," he says, "What year was that? '62?" I go, "No, '61." Leonard, he was so proud of that meet because it was his first international meet, I think, and we became friends after that. And he looks like a hard ass guy. I mean, but he's a
Right.
nice guy. So anyway, that was '61. '62 was the World Championships in Prague. I competed in that. '63 was the Pan Am Games. I competed in that. And I tried out for the 64 team, but I was having trouble with my marriage with Muriel, and she made it pretty impossible for me to work out. She just demanded a helper, etc. So I wasn't going to go into trials, and Don Tanya, my friend said, you got to
Yeah.
go in. So I went into trials, and I would have made the team, but I slipped off the horse, the compulsory dismount,
Mm-hmm.
and that one caused me to, miss the final. They were going to have the top 10 guys in California, and that caused me to miss. So I didn't make that team. So as soon as I missed the team, Larry Banner and some of the guys on the team said, they went to the head coach and said, could you make Abie the assistant coach? We'd like to have him along with us. So I was older than the other guys. So he chose me as the assistant coach. And the the Olympic Committee, the president and the executive director knew me from past Olympics. Said, oh, yeah. So I got credentialed, and I went to the Olympics as assistant coach in 64.
Wow.
And, and then in 68, we had a in 60. I tried out for the 66 World Championship team. And after the compulsories, I mean, I was hurting. I had very bad shoulders. So after the compulsories, I went to eat in a restaurant with a few guys, and there was a phone call in the restaurant. I don't know how they found me there. And the committee had met and said, we chose you a coach if you don't go in the final trial meet. I said, let me think about it. Okay. I mean, it took me 2 seconds. I mean, let me think. Okay, because I was over the hill, really. I was hurting, so that's what made you over the hill. So I went over as the head coach in 66, and Fred Roethlisberger was on that team.
Okay.
And, and a few other, Mako Sakamoto was on that team. And Mako was also on the 66 team, by the way. And that's the one that Kamati Allen was.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that was 60, 66. And then I got chosen as the Olympic coach in 72. And then again in when? 72 and 84, I got chosen as Olympic coach.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but in 68, we were training the top 24 guys at Mondo Vegas School in Louisiana. I had there were 4 coaches: Rusty Mitchell, myself, Bill Meade, and Jack Beckner. And Jack Beckner was the 68 Olympic coach. Bill Meade was the manager. So we divided into four teams, and we had practices. We had a little meet at the end of the 3-week training camp, and then I went home. And they didn't want us at the final training session at Air Force Academy, any of us other guys, so we didn't go. And Muriel found out about it. She was the head coach in 68. We were already divorced, and she said, "Would you like to come and assist me with the Olympic team in 68?" I said, "Sure, that'd be fun." So I went to Lake Tahoe, and I was the assistant. Dick Mulvihill and myself were the assistant coaches for the 68 team, the women.
For the women's team.
The women's team. So I went down, and we had a 6-week training camp at Lake Tahoe. That was hard to take.
Yeah.
So fun. And and I say, "Come on, girls, do it a little harder." And I just quit competing so I could demonstrate tumbling and stuff. Say, "I want you to do this," so I could demonstrate everything I said. And I had a few, things happen at the camp that, funny. For example, no more than 2 girls could do the same dismount or beam or bars or vault. Those
Wow.
rules. No 2 could do the same dismount. And so I had to teach a couple of girls how to do like a heck vault instead of a handspring. And that was hard because that was so foreign to them. And Kathy Rigby was really talented. Like when I told her to do stuff, she could do it pretty much right away. So there's a trick called a care. I don't know if it looks like you're almost sitting on your hand when you go from one part of the pommel to the middle, like from the end to the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And you like sit or a half turn into the middle into circles. Well, you can do that on our bar too. Very rare do you see girls do. They do the straddle one. You ever, when they straddle their legs and go.
Yes.
But to do a two-legged care is way harder. And a couple of guys tried to teach it to Kathy, but she couldn't learn it. And she mentioned it to Mira. Mira goes, "Can you help her with it?" I go, yeah, that was a compulsory class in '54, so I know how to do it. So I could demonstrate it. So I said to Kathy, I went, Kathy, when you do it, don't do it like the pummel, like you sit on your hand. You do it like you're going to do a stoop through, except you let go one hand, and then you wind up. You're not going into circles. You wind up like in an L, and you can do a back seat circle out of it. And she learned it right away.
Wow.
And Herb Vogel showed up at the training camp. He wasn't official at Lake Tahoe. He just showed up there, and he'd yell at from the bleachers. He'd yell out. He goes, "Abie, have her sit on her hands." And Kathy, Kathy Rigby, she made a face. She goes, "Oh my God," because I told her that's not. He didn't know how to do it. He just said he knew pommel horse. I
Right.
said she can do it real well, but the problem is her knees were bent a little bit, so I was straightening her legs out. She was little, so I could hold her. I said, when you jump, lock your legs, right from the takeoff, and she got it. So that was one of the things. And then when I was teaching the girls tumbling, I said, "Look, watch, girls, when you're doing you're doing like a layout, it's not just getting your arms up. You got to get them up early. So to get them up early, you got to get them back early on a back handspring.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're doing when you do it around them, you got to think getting your arms back real early, and that enables you to get them up early, and that transfers to the rest of your body because your arms sort of stop when you leave the ground and they come back to your body."
Right.
So I didn't explain everything though, but I just said, got to get them, and I could demonstrate it. And Herb Vogel yells out, "Hey, Abie, when you try to put your hands up, make sure you go low and long." I said, "I'm not telling them to get their hands." He looks at me. I go, "The difference is I'm get them up early. That's
Right.
the key." So anyway, there were other things like that. I said, "Why do you do that, Herb, when we'd all go out at night?" He said, "I got to look good when I coach." I go, "You weren't coaching. You're sitting in the stands." I said, "You don't look good when you do stuff like that." I go, he show his knowledge,
Yeah.
So to me, I think he was a jerk, Anyway, so that was
So that was the women training for 68, right? And then you were the men's coach for 72.
Yeah, I was always a men's coach, except in '68 I was the women's assistant.
Wow. Did you go to Mexico City?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
I was assistant. I was drilling the girls to work out. Do another one, girls. Come on.
Wow.
I was assistant in Mexico City. Unfortunately, Muriel isn't with us. I mean, you could ask her, but she,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also assistant coach. Yeah, and Mulvihill was assistant too. He had Matheny on the beam.
He had what?
Linda Matheny.
Oh
Linda
yes,
Mulvihill.
right. That's right.
Yeah, you see, he smothered her since she was like 13, and he had. By the way, he was married with 9 children.
Wow.
First, and then he was with Linda, and she was about 20 years younger than him. But the point is, she was only 13, and he was always. And rumors started across the country, and they were actually true because he was forced to move out of his house. Well, he moved out of his house with his kids, and he moved there with one of my ex-teammates at Illinois, a guy named Gavin Blair. And we had a meet in Chicago called the North American Championships, and Gavin was there, and Mulvihill was living with him. So we said to Tony and I, we go, "Hey, Gavin, come here." He was a good friend. We said, "Gavin, you ever see Mulvihill mess around with Linda?" He goes, "Oh yeah, he screws her every night like clockwork. I got to go through his room to get to my room." Well, we knew this in 1966, 67, but we never said anything. And then after they were married, then we sort of let it out a little bit. But you talk about abuse. Oof.
Oh my gosh.
We went to the Gymnastics in 1965.
Mm-hmm.
Men's and women's. These are like we had trampolinists with us and
right.
And whatever, no rhythmics then, but everybody was there in the world. The Russian Olympic team was there, guys and girls and acrobats, and so we went there and. This guy Bob Hall from the University of Washington. We're just standing there in the hotel. He goes, "Hey, Linda, you want to go down and get an ice cream in that cart over there?" She goes, "Yeah." So he goes, he's a very nice guy. He goes down, and he comes right back. When I got back, well, we got back to the States. Mobile came to me and go, what the hell was happening? I was not the coach. I was one of the, athletes. He said, what the hell happened? Down this guy, Bob Hall with Linda. And he walked down 50 feet to get an ice cream and then came right back. I mean, he was like, ugh.
Wow.
Well, anyway, he had 2 kids with her, and then he died with a stroke. But can you imagine leaving 9 kids?
Right. Wow.
And his third oldest daughter, I don't know if you knew her, Colleen Mulvihill.
Oh, yes.
Colleen Mulvihill was his third oldest daughter. And Linda was mean to her as could be. And only, at the end, Colleen died like last year or so. She just died. She wasn't, when she was born, she was probably born around 47, 48.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe later. So Colleen, Lynn was always, Colleen called me about 15 years ago. I said, is Linda still mean to you? She goes, no, she's not that bad anymore. Colleen was a wonderful person, wonderful. His oldest daughter was a few weeks older than Linda.
Wow.
Yeah, her name was Kitty. Yeah, 9 kids.
9 kids. Yeah, Colleen Mulvihill. I do remember that name because she competed.
Yeah. She was in the Olympic team, 68. Yeah.
Oh, she was in. Wow.
Well, let's see, we're 68. Yeah. Yeah, she was on the Olympic team in 1968. She was very good on uneven bars.
Gotcha.
And wasn't that good of a dancer when she was young, but at the end, she became like a dancer and choreographer. You ask Toby about it. Toby knows her.
Right. So did he coach her?
Not while she was a gymnast. Oh, no. Muriel coached Colleen. Well, from Mulvihill coached, the father coached Colleen. He coached Colleen until she made the Olympic team. And then, Colleen took off on her own. He just didn't have any money, so Dick would always send the money. It's his daughter. He sent the money. And, but I don't know. You have to ask Toby what he did. I don't know what Toby did. He might have done some stuff with her.
I think so. Maybe. Right.
Yeah. Because she became a dancer, and she wasn't a dancer when she was young.
That's so interesting.
So, matter of fact, I taught Linda with Pip. Linda was 13. Because they would Dick Mulder come down from Wisconsin to Champaign, Illinois, and he was not a gymnastics person, but he watched us work out all the time. And finally, Charlie Pond, the coach, was going on a sabbatical leave, so he was leaving, and he goes, "I need someone to take up school." And none of us wanted to do it, so we go, "Why don't you ask Dick? He seems to be interested." Dick always talked to us, so Dick, I'd like to get involved in gymnastics, and he took over. And a few months later, he came to me, Dick. He goes, "Can you want to come down to the Playstrom gym and maybe help? I have 4 girls that are beyond my ability. I don't know what to do with them." So I went down there. I said, $5 an hour. So he gave me $5 an hour, which was good pay in 1961.
Right.
So I went down to the gym, and there were 4 girls, and one of them was Linda. Was the youngest one. She was 13. So I taught him a glide tip and back hip circle and stuff like that. And he was watching. And it turned out years later, Colleen would watch. Colleen was a little too. She was about 10 then. She was on the side. There was another bar, and she watched me teach what I was doing with the girls, spotting them.
Yeah.
On her own. She ran. I do a running kip. She ran on the floor, brought her feet to the bars, and she tried to. And she finally made a kip on her own. Squirmed up there.
Wow.
Went, wow, Dick. Very rare. Kids have trouble learning a kip, as you probably know in your school.
Yeah, sure. I know the kips are tough. Right.
It's hard for a lot of kids.
Mm-hmm.
She learned it on her own. She was 10. I said, "She's good." He goes, "She's a spastic." I go, "No, she ain't." Well, 7 years later, she was on the Olympic team.
Wow.
So, she had talent. Yeah, Colleen.
That's amazing.
So
for you, after 72, you were the coach. When did you start coaching college?
In 1962. Well, I got my master's degree in 62. 60, 62. And what I did is at Illinois, and then I got a job. I looked for a job, and I got a job at the Coast Guard Academy, which is in New London, Connecticut. And on a map, it looks real close to New Haven. And Don Tynree was in the Army, and he got a job without a bachelor's degree. He had a job at Yale University as a gym coach. Well, Don and I were teammates. So we were still competing. So I took that job. And so I traveled down with Muriel every day, every weekday. We traveled down to New Haven. It's about it's a good 50-mile drive, maybe a little more each way. So we drove down and we worked out at Southern Connecticut. And then Dick Zuber, he was getting his master's degree at Illinois. And when he got his master's degree in like 1957 or 8, he was looking for a job, and 2 jobs opened up. Southern Connecticut was called New Haven State Teachers College then, and then San Francisco State College opened up too. But he got $2,000 more salary at Southern Connecticut, so he took that job. And since we knew him, Illinois, when we were coming back from the '60 Olympics, Sharon Richardson was on the team. Sharon Richardson was in Charlie Pond's summer playstream, which is different than the regular playstream, which was in Champaign. And summer playstream is in northern Michigan near Traverse City. It's a summer camp.
Okay.
And she was at the camp, and she was like, crude, a beginner. And she came down to stay with a family in Champaign. I guess Charlie invited her down because she was a strong girl. And I worked out with her. Charlie went on a sabbatical, so I taught her a full twist. And she was the first girl ever to do a back full on floor in the Olympics, 1960.
Wow.
And yes, so we all became friends. Sharon, myself, Muriel. When she found out I was getting married to Muriel, which it is in 1959, she goes, "You getting married to Muriel?" I go, "Yeah." It goes, "I didn't know you knew her." I go, "Well, apparently I do know. I wouldn't be marrying if I didn't know her." And she goes, start crying. But, it was like a crush. I didn't know it. I was just helping. So then we all became friends. But then Don Tynree got engaged to her.
Wow.
She was a nice girl. So we all were buddies. So when we come back from the '60 Olympics, we're at Idlewild Airport. You know what that is, Idlewild?
Mm-hmm.
So it's Idlewild Airport. And, I'm sorry. I got to jump ahead 2 years. When we come back to '60 Olympics, I said, I called Zuber. I said, I snuck Sharon Richardson into the gym in Illinois. They didn't allow women in the gym. So I snuck her in the gym, and that's how I helped her. We were like the 2 people in the gym, and I'd work out and I'd help her.
Wow.
Well, what happened was, I said, this guy Dick Zuber likes to work with women, and he was at Illinois. Maybe you could work out at his gym. So I called him in New Haven, since he got the job in around 57 to 58. This is 1960. I go, "Dick, how would you like to have Sharon Richardson come up and work out with your team?" He said, "Have an Olympian?" "Oh, yeah, that would be great. So she can live with my wife and myself." "Oh, okay, good." So Sharon went up there. Now, Don Tynree was engaged to her, so I'm getting my master's degree in Champaign, and Don calls me. He goes, "Abie, I drove from West Point." He was stationed at West Point in the Army. Don goes, "I drive to Dick Zuber, so she has to study." I go, "High school?" She was in high school still. I go, "Study?" I go, "It's your fiance." He said, "No, well, I finally saw her." Well, a few weeks later, Don called again. He goes, he wouldn't let her out of the house. So I told Muriel, he's messing around with her then. Muriel goes, "No, he wouldn't do that." I go, "Well, what sounds like it." Well, I was right. Then the rumors started. Then Zuber divorced his wife, married Sharon. He was forced out of Southern Connecticut. You know Jay Ashmore, right?
Yeah.
Jay Ashmore was getting his master's degree at Southern Connecticut. Even though Jay is from Texas, he was getting a master's. So he took over the team in '62, spring, and then he was leaving after he got his degree. And since the job opened up, I said, "Well, I'll apply. I don't want to work at a military academy like the Coast Guard Academy because they don't, you can't train guys properly." So I moved to Southern Connecticut. It took a $2,000 cut to go to Southern Connecticut. So I started in 62 September 7,
Wow.
and I retired. And then I started Coast Guard in 62 to 63. In 63, I started at Southern Connecticut, and I stayed there till 2004. 41 years I coached it.
Wow. That is
And
amazing.
yeah, Amelia, we were divorced in 66, so it gives you an idea. She was with us.
Yeah. Wow.
So.
She was there until and then 66. That's interesting.
In
Wow.
1961, remember I said we met, the Soviets came to Penn State in January 61. We had to meet with them. And in the dual meet, I took second in vault, or tied for second, and I beat Jacqueline. He won the Olympics in 60. He did the same vault, I did the same vault. Just a difference in judging.
Wow.
I was like 40th in the Olympics. And I said, Jesus, the scores. They said, we do the same vaults as other people, and the scores are so different. Anyway, and rings too. I think I took third, second or third. I beat Jacqueline, and he was second in the Olympics. And I go, God, what a difference in judging. So, okay, that's the dual meet. We got real friendly with the rings.
Yes.
Then in June of 60, June of 61, we went to Moscow. We reciprocated, had a meet in Russia with them. And that's where we met the two astronauts. Anyway, in that meet, I was going to tell you something about it. Let me go back to when the Russians were in America in January 60. The girls had a meet at Westchester State College, while the men's meet was at Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the girls' meet, Muriel tied Latinina on floor.
Wow.
And Muriel was really very elegant. She won 8 nationals on floor.
Wow.
8. And, because she could dance way better than the other girls, and she looked good. Did the same type of tumble, but some of the girls even tumble a little better. But the point was, she just had a really unique floor for that day. She did her own choreography, and so Muriel went around the country. Muriel choreographed a lot of girls' routines.
Right.
Coached her while she was competing. So anyway, she had taken all kinds of dance. She, besides ballet, she took tap dance, hula dance, Hawaiian dance.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everything. Yeah, she could do it all. Matter of fact,
Where did Muriel grow up?
Indianapolis.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Speedway, Indiana. It's a suburb now of Indianapolis, but it was incorporated. It's a separate little. It's adjacent to Indianapolis Speedway. It's where they have the 500 track.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
where she's.
So you were at Southern Connecticut for all that time, and do you remember who was the first Black gymnast that you had on your team?
The first one I remember that was his name was Jim Yearwood. Jim Yearwood was from Brooklyn. Jim Yearwood won the Division II NCAA on pommel horse.
Wow.
And in Division One, 2 guys tied for first, and he was third. He was next after the 2 guys in Division One.
Division One, what event?
Pommel horse.
Okay. Wow. Mm-hmm.
He was he worked a little, but he was basically a pommel horse specialist. And so he was a gymnast. And
Jeez.
He lives up in Litchfield, Connecticut now, I think. I haven't seen him in a number of years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He was the first guy I had a Southern. So let me see. And then there was years, I got a couple of guys that weren't that good. I can't even remember their names. I'd have to look it up. But the next guys I had were Mario McCutcheon and Wally Miller.
Right.
They came from the same high school. And Byron Knox also came from the same high school, but he was 1 year behind them. So they were all on my team. They were all on my team. They came from Dewitt Clinton High School in the Bronx.
You know what? Why didn't I know? What, for some reason I can't remember. I didn't remember Mario was from the Bronx. Really? So they went to Dewitt Clinton. Oh.
Dewitt Clinton. Yeah, he went, and you know who their coach was?
No.
John Trietta.
Oh my gosh.
You know John.
Yeah.
Yeah, John Trietta was the coach in high school. He did a good job with them.
Oh, I see. So he was the coach at DeWitt Clinton, and that was Mario and Wally and Byron was after. That is amazing. Wow. Yeah. And then where did Chaz come in?
Chaz was from Philadelphia.
Right.
So Chaz came later. Chaz came years, after they graduated. Chaz was on the team. He was on the team like in the late 70s, early 80s. Chaz, I'd have to look up the exact years, but so he's like a goofball. We made, I said, Chaz, they call some of the guys kid around call him. His name was Charles. Really, they call him Charlie. Even though he was known by Chaz. He always did some drawing. He always did drawing.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So,
now,
yeah. Didn't Obama have one of his pictures on his office or something?
Yes.
Wall.
Yeah. No, he's quite the famous artist now. That's so funny because I went to see him once in LA. Really random. I can't remember. I just remember it was a long, long time ago. I was at LA for something. I just went by to see his studio. So yeah, that was interesting. So did you notice? Did you notice anything about having Black gymnasts? Was there any type of energy or that you knew of the Blacks that were coming up, or did they have a different attitude for them or something?
Not those guys. I had a guy named Tony Williams, also from Dewitt Clinton, and a guy named Reggie Wilder. But there were Tony Williams. He won the ECAC or the EIGL. That's a famous league. He won that title, and then I don't know how he did in Division II. I can't remember. I don't think he won it, but he was good. Tony he worked high bar mostly and pommel horse. Funny nation. But Tony was good. And Tony, one year he said, "I got to take off. I believe in some religion." So he started wearing a robe around campus. So he was different. But the other guys were all, I wouldn't know they were black or white or green or whatever, They're all, we mixed in real good. And matter of fact, this guy in California, I can't remember his name. He says, he wrote it in the internet, says, Abie Grossfeld realized the value of the black athlete. That's why he has these black athletes on his team. That's not true. They just happened to come to my team. They happened to be black. I didn't recruit them because they were black or anything.
Right.
So anyway,
interesting.
It could be because I went to Stitt Junior High, which was really predominantly black. Very few white kids in the school. Some of my friends around my block, they went up to this junior high. It was junior high I lived on 163rd. They went up to 174th and 5th Street. Well, Stitt's 164th. I one block over from me. I said, I'm going to Stitt. And they didn't want to go there because it was all black, remember? And I go, why? I couldn't figure. And they went there, and I go, okay, do what you guys do. So I never had as good time and fun at Stitt as I really had a good time there. That was great. I felt sad when I graduated, leaving all my friends.
Yeah. Wow.
And, one guy was became one of my best friends. He lived on 161st Street. Well, the way it worked, the black neighborhood went all the way up to 161st. And then 162nd was mostly white, and up and north of that was all white. When I say all white, there could have been one black family here and there in the block.
Right.
So it ended. So people thought that was Harlem, but that's actually still Washington Heights.
Right.
Washington Heights starts at 155th, and he lived on 160. So I'd go up to his house, and his older brother, he says, and he it was like he was kidding around, but he walked by with a knife, go, "Watch yourself, white boy." And I go, "Okay." I was brought up in a pretty tough neighborhood, so I was used to stuff. So he'd do that to me. And Sam, my friend, would get so mad at him. But Sam was a really great artist. When he was 6 years old, he drew a comic strip, and he showed it to me. It was
Wow.
like, I couldn't believe a 6-year-old kid could do that. And he was a great drawer, very smart in school. And he tried out for music. I might have told you this before. He tried out for music and art, which was a famous
Right.
high school.
Yeah.
And he was turned down, and he had to only be turned down because he was black. That's the reason. And I was so upset with that. So
Wow.
anyway, we lost touch with each other many years ago, but we were really good friends. And he was a smart kid. He was really a great artist. Jazz couldn't free draw. Like they'd say to Sam, they go, "Sam, draw a Thanksgiving scene on the blackboard, with the colored chalk and stuff."
Right.
He would draw it, and he never erased the line. Everything was the
Wow.
right proportion. He'd draw a tree, a turkey in the distance, the men. You got to be a real. That's to me, that's a talent. Not
Right.
too many people have. But Sam had that. So anyway, so
That
I
is-
assume, I assume he said he wanted to become a medical artist because that was a thing they did then, I guess. So
Right.
anyway,
Wow. That's so interesting.
Sam Dingwall was his name. Yeah. Thinking of who
And-
else.
Yeah, I'm trying to think as we're
Those are
going.
the- I just named it. Well, I forgot about Tony Williams and that guy. Reggie Wilder's pretty good on high bar, but he didn't win any championships. But Tony was outstanding on pommel horse.
Wow.
Outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
We have a big meet, the Farmingdale Open. Tony won that. So Tony Williams, but he was still a good guy. He took a year off. He dropped out with this religion. Then he came back and he competed for me his senior year. Then he moved on. I think he got married. He moved to Missouri, and then Reggie Wilder showed up in the gym. He was helping his little boys at a club in New Haven, and Reggie Wilder said, "Abie, Tony died. He backed up a a Volkswagen bus off a bridge, and like the whole family fell off the bridge and fell down and got killed."
Oh
I went,
my
"Oh
God.
my God, I know." So that was the end of Tony, but he was good, Tony. He was going to do
Wow.
with Clinton also. And
Yeah.
anyway, he was a little before marrying those guys.
Okay.
I think he graduated. Was he before them? God, I have to look at it. It gets me mixed up with all these times. Anyway,
Yeah.
he was around. I think he was a little before them.
Okay. That's interesting.
And I'm trying to think of who else. Well, people were listing black athletes on Facebook. I don't know if you saw that list. People were naming people.
Oh
all
no, I
across
didn't
the
see
country.
that.
Yeah, it was
No.
on Facebook. So I of course no one knew about Archie Durham. I go, I bet you don't have anyone older or before Archie Durham. I put that
Wow.
name down.
Yeah.
And Sid Oglesby. I'm thinking who else was a top black guy? Well, Gerald Lynch, obviously.
Yeah.
We all know Ron Gallimore, of course, but Gerald
Right.
Lynch took second was in the Olympics. And Jair came to our gym. He was coached originally by the Dembro brothers. There are 5 brothers, and 2 of them were on my team.
Hold it. Which
Don
Lynch
and
are you talking about?
Dembro.
Dembro.
They're from Silver Springs, Maryland.
Okay.
And Dale, the second oldest. The oldest name is Dana. He's like a politician in Washington. But the Dana, second oldest, coached Jair Lynch when he was a little kid. And they came up to work out. They came up and Jair Lynch is running around the gym, like making noise and carrying on. And I remember telling him, I go, "Jair, you got to be quiet." And, I bawled him out a little bit. And when he got old, he says, "You remember me, don't you?" And I go, "Yeah, I definitely remember you." And he became, I mean, super intelligent. He went to Stanford, made the Olympic. Made I think he might have made 2 Olympic teams. Did he?
Oh,
He
you mean
definitely made the.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. Yes. He was in '96, '92. I think both, maybe, right?
yeah, yeah. I think maybe '92 also. In '96, he took second on parallel bars.
Right, right.
Yeah, he was good, Cher.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Jair. Um, yeah, I should try and give him a call because we stayed in touch after, we were doing the Olympic bid and stuff, and then he was on the
Yeah,
Olympic committee.
yeah, yeah. He apparently has to do with building, building buildings
Yes.
in Washington D.C. area. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. He does a lot of development work. I see him. His
yeah.
his daughter was doing tumbling trampoline.
Oh,
So
okay.
I saw him sometimes. His wife was a synchronized swimmer. Very interesting. But his
Oh,
daughter
okay.
was really good and she went to they have a lot of those gyms in Maryland, TNT
Yeah,
gyms. So yeah, I saw him there. And then of course, well, Charlie, we skipped Charlie Lakes, which whatever happened to Charlie Lakes?
I don't know. He showed up at San Jose at the Olympic trials in 2000. You know,
Oh,
I mean, I don't.
it did. I didn't see him. He was
He,
at the trials in 2016.
I think so. I think I
Oh,
saw him. I don't know if
wow.
I.
Well, Cheney Humphrey was there. I think I saw Cheney.
Yeah, Cheney was there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
remember seeing
Cheney,
Charlie.
Cheney was at Bruno's camp. Where he went to UCLA, and Art Sherlock was his coach, and that's
Right.
when Art had a heart attack, and Cheney woke me up at 3 in the morning. We were staying in the same house, and Cheney goes, "Abie, we got to get Art to the hospital." So I put on shorts, shirt, jumped in my flip flops, hopped in the car. It's about 3 in the morning. Drove Art to the hospital. Cheney being a medical student, they let him in the room, and they gave Art uh, a bypass, not a bypass, what do you call it? A stent.
Mm-hmm.
A stent. And then they determined that Art needed a bypass. So
Wow.
they flew him down to Philadelphia, and he had a bypass. And while he was the day after that, we went down to visit him. The day after that, we got a call, and Art had a massive heart attack after that, and they determined he needed a new heart, and he was on a machine, whatever it's called, for
Right.
about 5 weeks, and you can only be on it 6 weeks, and then once you take you off the machine, you're dead. So it like pumps your blood around your body. And Art, apparently a young woman was in an accident in Washington, the state of Washington, and Art got a young woman's heart. And he got the heart transplant on his birthday in 1980. 20 years later, he's still going, Art.
Well, no, this was
He's still,
he got it back in. When did he do? Because Art, no, this was after. So what year did he? So where were you guys? You guys were in New York. Where were you? So
we
Cheney
were at Bruno's camp when he had the first heart attack. We were at Bruno's camp.
at Bruno's camp. I see. Okay, you're at Bruno's camp.
IGC. IGC.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So this was This was in 1998, maybe, or 1998.
oh well, I'm sorry, I said 1980. It was in
Right.
it was in
2000.
2000. He got the 2000. Right, 2000.
Wow.
He got it on his 63rd birthday. They don't like to give you a transplant after age 60, but they determined he was in real good shape. So they they put you on a list, I guess,
Wow.
and a new heart. And as a matter of fact, when I came back, I went home. When I came back on a Sunday to camp, I said, they said Art had to go to the hospital because of his heart, and he was getting these tests. And then I found out that Art didn't stick around. He just left the hospital. He didn't stick around for the full test. So I said, we gotta call again. You gotta get checked out, Art. So we made him call again when the camp called again. So brought him back to the hospital. And that night is when he had a mild heart attack. And between that Sunday and Monday, and I drove Art 3 o'clock in the morning to the hospital. In other words, his heart was not good, and he got a transplant. He's still going.
That's
It's
amazing.
amazing.
Yeah.
Many years later. In
Wow.
2000, right? Yeah, I don't know why I said 1980.
Right. That's what I said. Let's get. Yeah, because Cheney competed in '96, so then he went to medical school. I see. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. So interesting. So
Yeah.
yeah, and so it's your history of knowing about all this and being from New York, because it's just, there's a lot more interest. When we started this will be the 6th year, which I didn't realize that we're doing this. And
Well,
it's
be good.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people are looking at what we're doing now, and of course, there all the energy that's been going on this past year. It's just it's becoming, people are learning more, want to learn more history, and also it just hadn't been there. They're just finding out
Yeah.
things like you're telling me about these athletes, and even I, who was in gymnastics so much, didn't know about these people. So I really
Well,
appreciate you.
yeah. It's interesting is, now that it's opened up and people are a little more fair. You look at it. Look at the girls' team. You got 2 Asians, 2 or 3 blacks, and maybe 1 white girl. 1 Caucasian. I mean, it's changed, a lot.
Yeah.
So,
What do you think that has been the change when you look at gymnastics now?
well, I think it's people are, let's call it more broad-minded or whatever, and it's not the prejudice that or the stereotypes people had many years ago. And I think also I guess the families can make the ones that have to pay. I didn't have to pay much money to learn. I just had to pay a yearly membership fee to the Y. So
Right.
people worked out for free. People worked out for free, and I think if you can afford to pay for lessons, then they send them to gym school. I guess that's what happened with Simone when she was young. They
Right.
certainly had to pay for it. And so they have they have to have a job so you can pay for it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with any family now. But it's hard to see. I think it's way better now than it's ever been. And
Mm-hmm.
the Frenches have always had 1 or 2 black guys on their team. Long
Interesting.
time. Oh, for a
Right.
long time.
And what about
And
Cuba?
well, a lot of people are, Cuban don't make any differentiation there, as far as I know. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
some very people are light skinned. They're either, sort of darker skin with Caucasian features, or they're black, and
Mm-hmm.
so Cuba, yeah. When I competed way back, most of the guys, I can't think of black gymnasts, and there was a guy, Rafael Acona, and his brother Fernando. They were like Spanish looking, and then there was a guy named Roberto Felician, who was Yin Alvarez. Is his name Alvarez?
Right.
The guy that jumped. His coach was Robert. When I showed him a picture, he was so happy. Well, these guys that were on the team, they all looked like they was, let's call it Spanish, but they were like, sort of
Lighter
darker
skin.
skin.
Right.
Yeah, they were light, very light, and they sort of looked like Caucasians
Yes.
rather than black. So it's hard to
Right.
say, but they've always had a lot of blacks there. But maybe I don't know if they. My impression is they weren't prejudiced against blacks like they were in America.
Yeah. Hard to say. It was a communist system. Um. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying.
I mean, it was communist. For me, the only other black rhythmic gymnasts were from Cuba.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
When
remember
I
you're
was
young
competing. I
and
know.
you're
I
younger.
know. Yeah. Yeah. I know. Just a little bit, but we're all hanging in there. Oh my goodness. This has
Yeah,
been, yeah, we have to put all your stuff down, because it's just so important to know this, because it's interesting, because now I teach at the New York Athletic Club, right?
Right. Well, they
And
didn't allow black in the athletic club when I was young.
they didn't, right?
No, they didn't, and they didn't like Jews either.
Right. Yeah.
So
I know. I know they have quite his or women, right? Nobody could go.
yeah, no women.
No
God, they
women.
were now it's okay now, right?
Yeah, they were, and then they started recruiting. Now they have a woman president, actually, which is the first time. They were recruiting me for a long time, for my women's sports and stuff like that. And, I didn't really want to go, but they have this great club there. I think Bruno was part of the New York AC team, and Tim Daggett was at New York AC athlete too.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a little background. There's a guy named John Nicholas who was he was at the West Side Y, which is only about 3 or 4 blocks away from
Right.
New York. And he went over. They gave him. You had to pay for membership at the Y. The New York AC gave him free membership. So he switched clubs. And I remember they called him a traitor at the Y. But he was a great guy. There was John Nicholas, and he was an assistant though. He was a gymnast there, and the head coach's name was Jake Huffner, another old guy, real old guy. Anyway, so we used to go over on Sunday mornings and work out there. We'd have to go in a back entrance,
Right.
couldn't go front entrance, and we went up the like a dumbwaiter or something to get to the gym.
Right.
And we worked. So I was going to tell you. So years later, when John Nicholas became the coach, he'd call me, and all my guys competed for the New York Athletic Club in the National AAU Championship. Peter Corman, Jay Whalen, John Crosby. John Crosby, they put a plaque on the wall like he's really a New York AC guy. He didn't earn anything there. But
really?
he's on the wall. Yeah, and then the same thing happened with Tim Daggett. He's an Olympian. They give him, they give him free this, free whatever it is. So
Right.
Tim represents, to say he's a true New York AC guy, go, come on,
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
our guys won that.
Oh, really? When they sponsored you?
When they sponsored my guys, they didn't sponsor me. And
Gotcha.
I had to get money to bring the guys to the National AAU meet, or even USGF meet. So you know what I do? I'd give them their names, and I didn't tell them they were black. I didn't say anything. And they gave me money. So Barry goes, I don't want you to do that. I went, okay. So what I did is I took the money that the white guys got, and I said, we padded the expenses. So we had enough money to pay for everyone. I padded because they're very well. So we padded it, like Jay Whalen, Crosby, Onesco. I had several guys that represented the New York Athletic Club, and the money they give them a big check. And we took half of it and gave it to Mario and Wally so they could compete.
Wow, that's so wild. Was Ray Lump the guy working at the time?
Yeah, Ray Lump was there. Yep, he was the
athletic director.
Ray Lump. Yep, he was there.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, it's a different times. Different times.
I know sure is. Mary.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think is going to happen with gymnastics moving forward? What do you see?
Well, it's one of the most popular sports in the Olympics. It's ranked in the top three sports are in the top tier: track, swimming, and gymnastics.
Right.
That's the top. Did a report on that. And gymnastics is actually ranked. It's hard to believe, but it's ranked above those two. It was. So anyway, in the Olympics, it's pretty safe. However, the colleges are dropping, so private clubs will open up, and the girls are safer than the guys because a lot of girls clubs. But it'll probably go. It seems like they drop a couple more teams. It won't be in college anymore. Down to 12 teams right now.
Yeah. So how can you get more men's gymnastics, more kids, more guys to do men's gymnastics? Because it's not working in the private club system.
Say that again.
How to get more guys into gymnastics? Because the private club system, I don't know.
Well, when people learn, it's like when they learn tricks, that motivates them.
Right.
That's why you do all these crazy things people do, but they motivate them, and then you got to do them nice, good form and whatever. And that's what motivated me, in a sense. I mean, I was always motivated by trying to do physical things, tricky skills.
Right.
I would think that would motivate them, but I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Just to open up clubs that coach guys.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to say. I hope that, for example, Bruno's camp, the biggest gym is where all the guys' equipment is, and he has a vault in there, and you can do floor in there because of the floor, but you have to go to different gyms to do beam and balance and bars.
Right. Okay.
But he likes men's gymnastics, so he built a good gym for men's gymnastics. And other people don't do that.
Right.
You have to have someone interested in the sport so they can produce a program.
And what's your thoughts about USA Gymnastics?
They get first, just to start with, the salaries are way too high. I'm not. They say, oh, compared to the other ADs and all, bull crap. I go, our sport isn't that high revenue producing, and to me the salaries are way too high, and and they're supposed to be the big bosses, like they're so important for gymnastics, but I don't like that. But maybe I'm old fashioned, but that's the way it is, and I think more money should be the program and promoting it. Why can't the federation donate money to clubs? So when Bear Bryant made over $1 million at University of Georgia as a football coach, he goes, or made a few million. He goes, I don't need that much money. He gave $1 million back to the school for the football program. So let's put it that they asked for donations. Steve Penny made $600,000 in 2003. I got the IRS report. Over $600,000. You think he'd donate $100,000 to gymnastics? So what I'm saying is, they make these big money, and that's all I know. So okay, the coaches do all the work.
Right. That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's who makes it.
You work hard. You got to kid stuff to raise money, and you do all this work, and then federation is crap. They just have rules.
Yeah.
That's all. The only purpose of the federation is to have rules, and they can set up a championship. They had a championship going. Then when Colorado was in, and the board of directors meeting, and he gives us financial report. Sounds really rosy and good. At the end, I think it was Kelly, the one that has a club America, Dominic Dawes' coach.
Oh yeah, Kelly Hill.
Kelly Hill goes, wait a minute. I understand you don't have a sponsor for the Nationals. He goes, well, we're trying to get one. He says, and I understand, of course, this is back 20 years ago. So I understand it costs $750,000 to run that meet. Yeah. That wasn't in the report. And everybody goes, wow. She knew this. And I go, wow. I go, so that's what I'm saying. And, and they cover for each other too all the time, I mean, Abby Feldman was a person up in Boston at a little club, but she's close friends with Colorado from the Boston area. They make her the membership, and she's making $160, starts off $50,000 starts off, and then she goes up from there. But I go, please. I go, as a full professor for the last 27 years that I worked, and I didn't get paid extra for coach at my school. I got paid as a faculty member, so I had to teach classes. I made $81,000 after 40 years.
Wow.
She $150. I go, and I'm a full professor. I go, what the hell is that? All this money.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That does make things tough. It does. But I tell you, it's so good. AB, thank you for everything and for being so really instrumental in your knowledge and being an encyclopedia of everything. But we so appreciate you, and I love you.
thank,
In the
thank,
Spirit of Sport Award, because you always come to our other events too. So thank you, AB, for supporting what
yeah,
we
well,
do.